You know, I just can't decide what's funnier. I can't decide what's funnier to me. Jasmine Crockett endorsing John Cornyn for Senate, or Eric Cartman portraying Charlie Kirk on South Park. They both made me laugh. I LOL. I'm sorry, I LOL. I laughed out loud for both of them. And I couldn't decide which one was more. They're both really entertaining. They were both the highlights of my day. If you missed both, here's the deal. Eric Cartman portrayed Charlie Kirk on South Park, did a bang-up job.
Oh my God, what makes you think you have the right to say what I do with my body?
Let me ask you something. If a pregnant woman is killed and the baby dies too, why is the killer charged with a double homicide?
Well, because people have different beliefs.
It's not about belief, it's about truth. Science confirms life begins at conception.
I mean, that's amazing. That's exactly. I thought I was watching Charlie Kirk there for a minute. The water bottle, by the way, the water bottle action, because if you've ever watched Charlie Kirk do those change my mind things on college campus, he's got the water. He's got to stay hydrated. You got to stay hydrated when you're arguing with crazy lunatic liberals. And man, it's a fantastic, that was a really good, even Charlie Kirk himself praised Cartman, Eric Cartman and the folks over at South Park for the portrayal of him. But then here comes Jasmine Crockett on MSNBC, and she's telling MSNBC she throws her full weight and support behind Republican Senator John Cornyn, which if you're John Cornyn's campaign manager, you just probably found the tallest bridge in Texas and hurled yourself off of it.
Now, listen, I'm about to tell all of MSNBC a secret. I actually don't hate Senator Cornyn at all. And right now, what we have is a senator who actually is a real Republican who's doing everything that he can to make it seem like he's a MAGA Republican so that he can get through his primary. But Senator Cornyn, this is not him. This is somebody that sat on our Supreme Court in the state of Texas. This is somebody who typically works in a very bipartisan way, unlike Senator Cruz. This is somebody who is literally doing everything that he can to hopefully get some of that MAGA base. And so Senator Cornyn knows that the FBI can't get involved and ain't gonna get involved as it relates to some little civil situation that was signed off on by the Speaker of the Texas House. But the MAGA base won't know that.
So Jasmine Crockett is outing Senator Cornyn. She says she supposedly likes him, doesn't mind him, enjoys working with him, thinks he's a good guy, thinks he's a real conservative or a real Republican, like she would have any idea what that is. And now she's outing him. She's saying he's just pretending. He's pretending so that the MAGA base votes for him and he doesn't lose to Ken Paxton, the AG, who, by the way, is miles ahead of him. So both of them were hilarious. Both of them were hilarious. Ken Paxton has to be like, thank God for Jasmine Crockett. Man, Jasmine Crockett just saying, oh, no. John Cornyn, he's not a tough guy. John Cornyn going after Democrats with the FBI, that's not going to happen. John Cornyn is one of us. He's on our side. He's not a MAGA Republican at all. He's just trying to win his primary. Well, if that's the case, man, with enemies like that, who needs other enemies? Anyway, this is Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Thanks so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe, by the way, to this broadcast if you're new. Welcome. We're so excited that we always love when new people show up. And I said new, by the way. Not someone once said, did you say nude? I go, no, new people. And if you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, wherever you happen to be checking out the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you set the notifications too, so that you do get notified whenever we go live, which is all the time, or whenever we post any other kind of content. And if you're listening on the podcast page, definitely tell Spotify and Apple iTunes that you want Mark Kaye Saves the Republic every single day, every day that it's available to you. Every time there's new content, just bring it on. Put it on my iPhone. Let me listen to it. I'll put it in my earbuds. You do the rest. All you have to do is set those notifications, follow the show, and subscribe. All right, so we got a lot to get to today. Donald Trump is going to take over Washington, D.C. He's going to be the king of D.C. He's going to be the commander-in-chief of the District of Columbia. And that's because the District of Columbia has fallen. I mean, this could be one of the Doge team's biggest contributions to Donald Trump and the United States of America. When Big Balls went to the Treasury Department with his laptop and his high security clearance and started, running AI scripts on the Treasury Department to find out who was screwing the United States of America and where the waste, fraud, and abuse was, we all thought, all right, well, here's a kid that's doing something with his life. Here's a kid that's helping the United States. But now because he got beat up by these criminal thug gang members in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump may federalize the entire district, clean it up, and save God knows how many lives. So really, by becoming a victim of violent crime in D.C., Big Balls may have saved Washington, D.C. He may have saved countless other men and women and locals and visitors and tourists and all kinds, and Congress people. I mean, everybody in the District of Columbia may be better off because of what happened to Big Balls the other day when he got beat up by that gang. And we'll get to that here in just a minute. First, though, a couple of big, I don't know if you heard these announcements. Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee has announced that she's a senator, by the way. She's going to be running for governor in Tennessee, and she's officially joined. She announced this a couple days ago. This was her campaign video.
Trump is back, America is blessed, and Tennessee better than ever. I'm Marsha Blackburn. Here in the volunteer state, we always lead the way. And that's why I am announcing my candidacy for governor. Tennessee is the greatest place in the world to rear a family, make a life and a living, and together we can make our great state even better. We'll make Tennessee America's #1 job-creating, energy-producing powerhouse. Deliver a world-class education for our children by empowering parents, not the deep state. And whether it takes planes, trains, or starships, we'll deport illegal aliens because respect for the law starts with enforcing it. This is Tennessee. We'll honor the Constitution, we'll value life, and we'll define our boys and girls the way God made them. I love Tennessee, I believe in Tennesseans, and I'm ready to deliver the kind of conservative...
All right, you get the idea. So Marsha Blackburn wants to deport illegal aliens, whether it takes planes, trains, or starships. That was an alien joke. I don't know who wrote that, but that person's got to get off of her speech writing. That person should be nixed from the speechwriting team moving forward. But then what happens is, so with Marsha Blackburn running for governor of Tennessee, and let's face it, she'll probably win. She'll probably do a decent job. We have respect for Marsha Blackburn. She's a very conservative woman, tough as nails. But with that, there leaves a big opening in the Senate, because if she wins, she's going to be governor. If she loses, she's not going to be senator. And so who's going to take her seat? Well, there's only one man that I can think of. There's only one man that I believe is up to the task of filling Marsha Blackburn's stilettos. There's only one man who I think deserves to be the next senator from the great state of Tennessee. And I am talking, of course, about the one, the only, Congressman Slingblade himself, Tim Burchett.
Congressman Perry, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
Do you trust your mother every night to fix your Hot Pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on?
I mean, that's got to be, come on. Congressman Slingblade becomes Senator Slingblade? If Tim Burchett isn't the next senator from Tennessee, then I don't know. I mean, I don't know who should be. I know that Andy Ogles is thinking about it, and I know that people like Andy Ogles, but Tim Burchett, I 100% put that guy in the Senate, and Tennessee will have one of the best representatives they could have ever hoped for. They will have somebody who will fight. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like Marsha Blackburn, but even probably harder than Marsha Blackburn for a couple of reasons. And it is my sincere hope that he not only runs, but gets the nomination. And if he gets the nomination, he's definitely got to win, because losing him in politics would be horrible. Tim Burchett is I mean, I couldn't think of a better person to be senator. I don't live in Tennessee. I've been to Tennessee many times. I think the people of Tennessee are great. I have lots of friends in Tennessee. Their old governor was fantastic. I think their new governor will do fine. But Tim Burchett is a gift to the entire nation from Tennessee, and I look forward to seeing what happens with his race. I hope to God he makes it to the Senate. Now, there's another I said ho. Oops. I meant high profile, not ho profile. I know. And don't say I called Nancy Mace a ho. That's what there's another high profile gubernatorial race in South Carolina coming up, and Nancy Mace has thrown her hat in the race.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace is now launching a bid to become the next governor of South Carolina. She says she will govern, quote, like Trump in high heels.
To the radical left, brace yourselves. And to the great people of the great state of South Carolina, help is on the way.
Yeah, Nancy Mace for governor. Now, again, with South Carolina, I have a lot of ties to South Carolina. I grew up going to the beaches in South Carolina. I got married in the state of South Carolina every year. We have a family reunion in South Carolina. I've just dumped tons and tons of my expendable income into the state of South Carolina. And so I feel that while I'm not a resident of South Carolina, I have a big say in who's going to be governor. And apparently so does everyone else. Now, Nancy Mace did something really interesting on her X feed. She channeled her inner Sydney Sweeney and posted this image. Okay. It says, Nancy Mace for governor has great genes. And then here's a picture of Nancy Mace in her tight jeans. They're like the three-quarter, what do you call it? The cropped jeans. She's got her high heels on, and she is apparently at the range shooting a high power rifle with a scope, and she's got all that, And so this is Nancy Mace. She's like, look, Nancy Mace for governor has great genes and also a gosh darn big gun. And she posted this, and immediately, there were a lot of comments. 9.7 million views, about 10,000 comments on this photo. Not all of them on her side. Greg wrote, "Are high heels proper footwear to wear at the shooting range?" To which Nancy Mace replied, "Of course they are." Harrison Crank wrote, "Nancy Mace is one lost election away from starting an OnlyFans." Again, these are just some of the comments. Half squeezed tube of toothpaste vibes. I don't even understand what that one means. "You have great legs, Nancy." That's just kind of creepy. "As a woman over 40 like you, Nance, I have such secondhand embarrassment for you." So you can see these comments, some good, some bad. Some were comparing her to other images that they saw on online. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a Scar rifle apparently too, by the way, is what I'm being told. But as she's potentially the third House member we will lose to a governorship that I can think of. Mace, Donalds, and Stefanik. We'd better replenish. So it looks like a lot of Congress people are throwing their hats or their stilettos or their Scar rifles or whatever they are, or their jeans into governor's races. And whoever posted that is right. Byron Donalds is right now he's the leading candidate in the Florida race for governor, and I know that because he's the only candidate in the Florida race for governor. Nancy Mace is, I believe, also the only candidate that I've heard of, at least, who's running for governor in South Carolina. And then, of course, now you've got, I guess, Elise Stefanik is running in New Jersey. I hadn't heard that one. So that's what we've got. We got a bunch of people that are going to be vacating the House and hoping to take over these state houses in these various states. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in Washington, D.C., to see what happens in the Capitol. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bummed because now that I myself am running for Congress, as you can see by my hat, Mark Kaye for Congress. Oh, I should point out, by the way, this out. In the thumbnail for today's show, if you are watching online, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on, if you're watching on one of those places, and you noticed in the thumbnail, I was wearing a light blue shirt and a dark blue Mark Kaye for Congress hat, a navy Mark Kaye for Congress hat. And now I always try to make sure that the thumbnail and my actual outfit match because I don't want to be accused of any kind of, inconsistency. I want to make sure that, there's continuity between the thumbnail and the image. But what happened was I took the thumbnail photo earlier today of me in my light blue shirt with my dark blue hat, my shades. I was doing a whole DC cop thing, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute. And then I had the thumbnail. I sent it off to the thumbnail people to upload, and I went to go make some lunch, and I splattered, butter, but grease basically all over my light blue shirt. So I ripped it off It was because it's this. I just ripped it off, and I immediately ran and I sprayed. I put the spray and wash on, and I threw it into the washing machine, and and then I had to change, so I put on the dark blue shirt. And then what happened was I was like, well, I don't like to wear the dark blue shirt and the dark blue hat. I like a little contrast, so I threw on the white. Anyway, that's why for some of you that may be thrown off a little bit, it's still me, even though the thumbnail image is me in this light blue shirt with the dark hat, and now you're watching me in a dark blue shirt with a light hat. It's just, I kind of flip flop. You're not going crazy. It was grease. I was cooking eggs, and you know what I did? I do the thing where I flip them in the pan, right? Because like a chef, because I used to work in a restaurant, so why use a spatula when you can just look cool? And of course, I flipped it, and there was too much butter in the pan, and it went splattered. And I like these shirts, and they're not cheap, so I had to spray it down immediately to get the grease stains out of it. All right, speaking of grease stains, speaking of cleaning things up, President Donald Trump wants to clean up the United States Capitol. He wants to clean up the District of Columbia. He's sick and tired of all the crime. He's sick and tired of the gang violence. He's sick and tired of the carjackings. He does not like that one of his federal employees, a guy that goes by the name Big Balls, was attacked by a gang of young thugs who were in the middle of a carjacking. He doesn't like that one of his government employees, one of his Doge representatives who's working diligently to help save the United States money, who's working diligently to fight the waste, crime, fraud, and abuse that we have in this country, got beat up on the streets of the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia, as the seat of power for the United States, is also the seat of power for the world. There is not another city that is more powerful than Washington, D.C. There is not another city with as much power as the folks in Washington, D.C. have. There is not another city that is as emblematic of freedom and liberty and justice for all than Washington, D.C. And as a result, Donald Trump says Washington, D.C. should be a lot safer than it is. It's not safe at all. And so he could potentially take over the police force, federalize the district, and restore law and order like only Donald Trump can. In fact, that's exactly what he said yesterday at a press conference in the Oval Office.
DC, are you considering taking over the DC police? Is that an option on the table?
We're considering it, yeah, because the crime is ridiculous. I could show you a chart comparing DC to other locations, and you're not going to want to see what it looks like. It was just up on television, actually, they were showing it. Now, we want to have a great, safe capital, and we're going to have it. And that includes cleanliness, and it includes other things. We have a capital that's very unsafe. We just almost lost a young man, beautiful, handsome guy that got the hell knocked out of him the night before last. And I'm going to call him now. We wanted to give him a little recovery time. We just put a call into him. They're calling back in a little while, but he went through a bad situation, to put it mildly, and there's too much of it. We're gonna do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes the graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it. And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too.
Yeah, by the way, that sounds to me, number one, not like Donald Trump is considering it, but like he's got it. He's already got it all planned out. In his head, the reporter's like, are you considering this? And Donald Trump goes, yeah, I'm considering it. Donald Trump's got it all mapped out. He knows exactly. First of all, he's going to bring in the National Guard very quickly. They're going to clean up the crime. They're going to get rid of the drugs. They're going to get rid of the murders. They're going to get rid of all of the thugs. Then they're going to clean up all the graffiti. They're going to make sure that the trash is picked up from the street. They're going to fix the barricades and the medians. They're going to make sure that the streets look nice. They're going to make sure all of this stuff that's happening is happening. And that's what President Donald Trump, I believe, has already decided to do. By the way, that chart, he's not wrong. That chart is everywhere. If you've missed it, here it is. Capital homicide rates. These are capital cities around the globe, and who has the worst homicide rates. Let's start with Havana, Cuba. Okay, Havana, Cuba, communist country, third world country, dictatorship. You think maybe there'd be some violence there. 4 homicides per every 100,000 people. I don't know how many millions of people live in Havana, Cuba, but I know that it's pretty crowded. So you've got 4 per 100,000. In Nairobi, In Nairobi, 5 per 100,000. Then you jump to Addis Ababa. And in Addis Ababa, it's 6 per 100,000. Mexico City, where the cartels live, it's only 8 per 100,000. And I know 8 per 100,000 seems like we're getting into high numbers, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Bogota, Colombia. Another crime-ridden country that's run by drugs, or was for a very long time. Bogota, 11 per 100,000. So now we're up into the double digits. 11 homicides in the capital of Colombia per 100,000 people. You might think that's a lot. Brasilia. Let's get to Brasilia first. In Brazil, Brasilia, 13 per 100,000. Lagos, 15 per 100,000. But you know what takes the cake? You know what beats them all with almost 3 times, by the way? This is ridiculous. Lagos has 15 homicides per 100,000 people. Washington, D.C. has 41. That's 4 shy of 3 times the second city. That's insanity. 41 people per 100,000 in the capital of the United States of America. Insane, horrible. That's utter neglect by the ruling body. That's utter neglect by the mayor, by the city council, by whoever's in charge of the police department. That's an abomination. And any other president or lawmaker who lives and resides in DC and doesn't do their part to make sure that DC is a safe haven, not just for the people that live there and work there and the elected officials and their staffers, but also for the millions of tourists that come through DC every year, the millions of school groups and children and people that are coming from all over the world to see what they think is one of the glorious cities in the entire country. And it is. But man, the dangers that are lurking right around the corner in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump said, we're not going to put up with that anymore. We're going to bring in the National Guard. We're going to clean it up. We're going to make sure that the city's safe. We're going to make sure that the city's clean. We're going to get rid of all the graffiti. It's not going to look like a hellhole. It's not going to look like a third world country. It's not going to look like Lagos. I'll assure you of that. It's not going to look like Havana. It's going to look like the ultimate seat of power and dominance and strength and freedom and liberty and glory that it should. And of course, Donald Trump has Jeanine Pirro to help out.
All I want to do is clean up D.C. That's why the president put me here. And youth crime is on the rise. In the last 4 years, we've had 150,000 cases of youth violence. Okay, 4 years ago. Now it's close to 500,000 cases of youth violence. We've got D.C. as one of the highest murder rates in the country. So we can talk about crime going down, but going down from where? So, I mean, this is something that is a whole other issue. Today is about this indictment and making sure that if you intend to commit a crime of anti-Semitism or hate, we're coming for you.
Yeah, she was
talking. Clean up these.
She was talking about a different case that they were discussing the indictment on this anti-Semitism attack in D.C. as well. But she got a lot of questions about Donald Trump federalizing because he said, "Look, I'm going to federalize it." He said, I'm basically, we're going to take it over. We're going to bring in the National Guard. And one of the and even though she wanted to talk about anti-Semitism, I'm going to be honest with you, she was sidetracked a lot by this idea that Donald Trump is going to take over the city. In fact, a reporter flat out said, what do you think about Donald Trump federalizing D.C.?
Do you support a federal takeover of Washington, D.C., as the president has suggested?
Yeah, that is a decision for the president. And I think that what the president was saying is that we're seeing far too much crime being committed by young people, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, that I can't get my hands on. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures, but, young people are coddled. And they don't need to be coddled anymore. They need to be held accountable. They shouldn't be going to arts and crafts in family court. They need to understand that enough is enough and that the D.C. Council has to repeal some of these absurd ordinances and laws that they've had passed that do nothing to protect the people of this city and of this district. And I will reference a case that I wrote an op-ed piece on that I've been talking about for weeks. A young person gets on a bus with an illegal gun. There is a family on the bus. He makes a decision to shoot someone in the chest. To me, that's intent to kill. But for the grace of God, that individual did not die. Now, he's got a gun. It's illegal. He used the gun. Guess what the sentence was? I got a conviction. The sentence was probation. We can't have that. And by the way, he wasn't a kid. He was 19. These are the rules of the D.C. Council. They've got to be changed. We've got to have the ability to let young people know that they're going to be accountable. And if you look at some of these pictures of these kids being beaten by crews and bloodied up, and you want to tell me that, it's only a kid who did it, no. Take a look at the bloodied up face and body, and you'll know that it's more than little kids doing this kind of thing.
Are you trying to get your office to take over what Brian Schwab is doing? Do you want to take over juvenile justice here in the city?
I'm not trying to do anything vis-a-vis Brian Schwab. All I want to do is clean up D.C.
Yeah, and that's where he picked up with the other one. So Janine Pirro's on board. She's like, look, whatever the president decides, we've got to fix it because the city council in D.C., the mayor's office in D.C., their laws are ridiculous. The convictions, sure, they're there, but the penalties are horrible. You can't fight law, or you can't fight criminals. You can't instill law and order if you don't have any kind of penalty for these people that commit these atrocities. If you've got people out there committing attempted murder, stealing guns, shooting people up, beating them and blooding them on the street, if you've got that going on, I mean, if Big Balls isn't safe, who is? This is the kind of thing that happens, and the ordinances and the laws and the rules that have been put forth by the D.C. Council do not keep the people in Washington, D.C. safe from the criminal element, which is growing. And that's one of the reasons why. If you know, for example, that you're not going to go to jail if you commit a crime, if you know that you're not going to go to court if you commit a crime, if you know that even if you do go to jail or you do go to court, you'll be let off with probation or house arrest or something lame like that, you're more likely to commit a crime. But if you know that they're going to throw the book at you and the penalty is going to be harsh and stiff and you're going to spend the rest of your life behind bars, you're probably not as likely to commit that crime. And if the folks on the DC City Council and the folks in the DC Mayor's office and the folks in the police department can't do their job, then Donald Trump says he'll do whatever he needs to do to fix it. And one of them may be to ask Congress to revoke the Home Rule Act.
And do you want Congress to look at overturning the DC Home Rule Act?
We're going to look at that. In fact, the lawyers are already studying it. We have to run D.C. This has to be the best run place in the country, not the worst run place in the country. And it has so much potential, and we're going to take care of it. You're going to be safe. You're going to be safe walking down streets. You're not going to get mugged.
Yeah, you're not going to get mugged. You're going to be safe walking down the streets. You won't get mugged. You might get shot by one of the Clinton's assassins, but I'm sorry. But only if you wrong them. Only if you have sensitive information. Look, Donald Trump can't protect you from getting Clintoned, but he can protect you from getting attacked by some kind of street gang. Look, the Home Rule Act in 1973, basically before the Home Rule Act, the District of Columbia was under congressional control. And in 1973, they passed this law, which gave the District of Columbia the right to self-govern itself, basically. It was self-governance that established this justice or this Department of Government where people in D.C. could elect their own governing bodies, and they were no longer under the purview of the Congress. Well, doesn't seem to be working out so well. I never thought that Congress would do a better job than anybody else on something, but apparently they did, because since 1973, we've had, it's just been embarrassment after embarrassment. Marion Barry, remember that? Remember Marion Barry, crackhead Barry? I don't know if you remember back that far, but that was a huge thing in DC. And then you got, what's her name? Muriel Bowser, and they've got the big Black Lives Matter right by the White House that they painted all over the street, that they had to rip it all off. It's been incredible, the mismanagement of Washington, D.C., of the district. Giving the district the ability to self-govern has been probably one of the biggest mistakes any Congress has ever made. And so Donald Trump's like, yeah, we're looking at it. We got lawyers right now. And this is the time to do it. You know why? Because Congress is out of session. So Donald Trump's going to get his lawyers on it. He's going to call his buddies in Congress. They're going to work all through August. They're going to figure out a way. They're going to write some law, some repeal of the Home Rule Act. And then on day one, which is September 2nd, when Congress comes back, Donald Trump's going to send his advisors over there and say, hey, look, you guys, we got a problem in D.C. They're beating up big balls. They're carjacking people. There's graffiti everywhere. There's trash. This is supposed to be the nation's capital. We spent all of August while you guys were at the beach and in Europe and doing whatever it is you guys were doing over August. Now what we've done is we've created a system where we believe if you guys repeal the Home Rule Act, we can bring in the National Guard, we can federalize the district, and man, we're going to make it beautiful. And everyone's going to be safe. And it behooves Congress for a couple of reasons. Number one, they live there. Their staffers live there. Their constituents come and visit them there. Wouldn't you want them to come and work and live and visit you in a nice, safe, beautiful environment? I know I would. When I get to D.C., when I'm the congressman for Florida's 5th District and my kids come to visit, I don't want them to be worried about getting mugged. When my wife comes up and we go out to some kind of event, I don't want her to be worried about getting carjacked or anything like that. I mean, the biggest concern I want to have as a congressman is that one of my fellow congressmen is going to slip something in my drink so that they could get some kind of provocative photos of me when I'm passed out that they could use to blackmail me later, like they did with Madison Cawthorn. That's going to be that's what I want my biggest concern to be. I don't want to be like, man, not only do I have to watch out for my fellow congressmen drugging my drinks so that they can blackmail me into voting that the way that they want me to vote. Not only that, but I have to also worry about getting carjacked. I mean, DC's dangerous enough for a congressperson. And that's a true story, by the way. I remember Madison Cawthorn, who you may remember, he was a congressman from North Carolina. He was in a wheelchair. He was in a car accident. He served one term and then they got rid of him. He said he got there. He says he gets to D.C. The first thing they do is they invite you to a party. You're a freshman congressman. You go to the party, and it's just a soiree, man. Open bar, lots of good-looking people everywhere. There's a DJ. There's food. Everybody's coming up to you. They're like, you're a congressman. Oh my God, so nice to meet you. And you're drinking and drinking and drinking, and all of a sudden you pass out. And you wake up and you're somewhere you don't know where you are. You're with somebody you don't know. You don't know where your clothes are. You're like, what the heck just happened to me? You get up, you get out of there. And then the following week, you're walking in, you're going to vote. And somebody comes up to you and says, excuse me, Congressman, just to make sure you're going to vote no on this bill. And they go, no. He goes, no, I don't know who you are, but I'm voting yes on this bill. They go, no, sir. And then they hand you an envelope with some photos in it. And you look at the photos and you go, oh my God, what? And you realize that if you don't vote no, the photos get released and your career's over. So you go in and you vote no. That's what Madison Cawthorn said. It's on the internet. You can go find it. I think he was talking to Benny Johnson, told the whole story. Not only do you have to worry about that, but you got to worry about carjackings and graffiti and getting beat up. And I don't want to have to deal with that. I'll deal with the car. I'll just not drink. I'll bring my own bottle of water sealed. And I'll just sip on that all night. That's what you have to do. You bring your own bottle of water that's sealed and you just sip on it and you keep the cap so you can just, whatever. And you never let your drink out of your sight. The same thing I tell my daughter and my wife, when you go to the bar, never let your drink out of your sight, right? When you go to a party, never let anyone else handle your drink. I tell the same thing to all my friends in Congress. Aaron Bean, Kat Kamak. I'm like, look, don't let anyone touch your drink because you never know. You never know where you're going to wake up and with whom. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I imagine there's some congressmen who don't like Tim Burchett. I wouldn't. I think he can take care. Of himself. But the Home Rule Act is something that Donald Trump says we got to look at, and we got to make sure that when Congress comes back, we're taking advantage of everything at our disposal so that we can make sure that we have a safe District of Columbia. And this guy, Kaye Stimson. What a great name, isn't it? Kaye Stimson, he's from the Heritage Foundation. He said, look, the biggest problem is the crimes in D.C., it's all teenagers. Oh, wait, where'd my Kaye? Hold on, I had my Kaye Stimson clip almost ready to go. Let me pull it up here real quick. Kaye Stimson said it. They're all young kids. They're all teenagers. And that's one of the biggest issues because the teenagers, the young kids, they don't have the kind of harsh penalties that they have when you're older. They don't have the kind of harsh penalties that you get when you are not a juvenile, when you're an adult. And and Donald Trump mentioned it as well too. He said, look, if we really want to make sure that our district is safe, we need to treat our young perpetrators and criminals as if they were adults. That's the only way. That's the only way that we're going to get it. That's the only way that we're going to get it done. And I don't know what happened to my Kaye Stimson clip. But I guess it's gone. That's so weird. It was a good clip too. And I appreciate the Heritage Foundation. I walked by their office. It's right next to a really great burrito joint. And so, yeah, I guess it disappeared. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Oh wait. Yeah, no, it's gone. Anyway, but you can just mark my word. You can just trust me on that. Hey, listen, here's something else you can trust me on, which I really hope you do. We have a fantastic friend of this show, Brickhouse Nutrition, and man, they have this great product that everybody loves. Brickhouse Nutrition offers up this product called Lean. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. I don't know if you've ever taken it yourself, but the reviews are incredible. I mean, it's really, really incredible. And the thing about Brickhouse Nutrition is that this product of theirs, Lean, which by the way is on sale. Here, let me pop this up too. They gave me a QR code for a discount. Look at this. If you just scan this QR code, I'm going to pop it right there on this. Whoa, that's big. Let me make that QR code a little smaller so you can see everything else. If you scan this QR code right here, okay, that's still really big. Here, I'm going to put it right there. You can get 20% off of your order of Brickhouse Nutrition Lean. And again, this is incredible. There's a subscribe and save option. There's the one-time purchase option. You can see that this is a product that elevates your resting basal metabolic rate, decreases your appetite, enhances fatty acid absorption, and stimulates lipolysis. Do you know what lipolysis is? I do, but I'm not going to go into the explanation here. But it's it's an incredible supplement. And as you can see, it's just a simple supplement. You take it every day. You can see on their website, if you go, by the way, to brickhousenutrition.com, or if you just scan the barcode, you can see the entire supplemental, all the chromium, all the Carolum fimbriata stern extract, all that good stuff that's going to help you with your cravings and help you lose weight. Here's a couple of testimonials too. You can see Teresa says, I feel the product working. I've used this product now for about 4 weeks regularly. Here's what I noticed. If I'm really eating right and working out, I feel it working. I can feel myself slightly heating up inside, which I love. I have my appetite suppressed. It gives me energy. For me, Lean is great. Here's another one. Lean into Lean. I have been on a journey. This is Carol, by the way, of wellness with weight loss included. I have tried anything and everything once, but this has taken the edge off wanting to snack and has added energy to help with the workouts. I like it enough that I referred it to a friend of mine. So far, it's working as it said it would. So if you've been looking for something to suppress your appetite and help you with those cravings, Lean into Lean. Scan that barcode for 20% off or go to brickhousenutrition.com. brickhousenutrition.com. And look, to make it even easier for you, you know what I did? I'm going to tell you what I did. I went ahead and I put the link to that product in the description of this video on YouTube and Rumble. So you can just click on that. You're very, very welcome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Apple. Donald Trump had Tim Cook from Apple in yesterday, and he got a gift. That's the thing. Tim Cook, he brought Donald Trump this gift. First, he brought him $600 billion, which, okay, that's a pretty decent gift.
Today, Apple is announcing that it will invest $600 billion, that's with a B, in the United States over the next 4 years. That's $100 billion more than they were originally going to invest. And this is the largest investment Apple has ever made in America and anywhere else. And it's just an honor to have you. As you know, Apple's been an investor in other countries a little bit. I won't say which ones, but a couple.
China. It was China. China. That's the country Donald Trump was talking about. He was talking about China.
And they're coming home. $600 billion. It's the biggest there is. The company is also unveiling its ambitious new American manufacturing program, which will bring factories and assembly lines across our country all roaring to life.
Yeah. So Donald Trump is he's in the Oval Office with Tim Cook. He's praising Tim Cook. He's saying, look, Tim Cook, he brought us $600 billion and he's bringing Apple home, and he's not going to spend that money in China anymore, which is great. Because if you're not spending that money in China, they can't use it to build weapons that they can use then to attack us. Basically, see, here's what happens. It's a really simple system. You buy an iPhone from Apple, okay? They take the money that you bought the iPhone. Well, okay, it actually goes back further. Apple goes to China and hires people to make iPhones. They give China money for iPhones. The iPhones come back to the United States. You buy that iPhone for a lot more money than they paid to have it manufactured. And then they take that money and go, oh, we need more iPhones. And they send your money back to China to make more iPhones and iPads and everything else that they make over there. And then they bring those back. They sell those at an exorbitant markup. And then they take all that extra money. And it's just this big cycle of money going to China. Well, what happens is when the money goes to China, your money that you gave to Tim Cook and Apple for your iPhone, that money that goes to China ends up building nuclear submarines and drone technology and space age, nuclear weaponry and AI technology and doing all these and weather balloons that fly across our country that Joe Biden just lets take, photos of our missile silos and all that kind of stuff. So that's where the money goes. So we're funding our own demise, really, because Apple was allowed to just create all of these iPhones over there in China. Well, Donald Trump has stopped that. He brought it back. He said, look, we got to figure this out because you can't keep taking our money, sending it over to China for these iPhones so that they can build all these weapons that are eventually going to destroy us. And I guess Tim Cook got the message because he's bringing the jobs back. He's bringing the factories back. He's bringing the money back. And in fact, in Kentucky, they're going to start manufacturing the glass. This glass that's on the iPhone is some kind of, I guess, proprietary specialized glass that they manufacture only in Asia. Well, now they're going to make it in Kentucky. And Tim Cook, get this, he brought President Trump a piece of this glass and then proceeded to almost break it.
Do you mind if I step up?
Yes, please.
This box was made here in the U.S., California. And this glass comes off the Corning line. It's engraved for President Trump. It's a unique unit of one. It was designed by a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, a former one, that works at Apple now.
That's good. He's done well.
Designed it for you. And the base comes from Utah and is 24 karat gold. And it sits, I'll take the liberty of setting it up.
Wow.
Well,
oops.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Congratulations,
Thank you
Mr. President. Thank you so much.
The great people of Kentucky.
Yeah. So basically, and there's nothing more awkward. There's nothing literally more awkward.
Yes, please.
Hold on. Hold on. Let me pause that. There's nothing literally more awkward than I want to bring this image right up here. Than watching a CEO try to put something together, like manual labor. And Tim Cook. So what it is I don't know if it looks like for those of you listening to the podcast, basically what happens is he brings out this piece of glass. It looks like a record. It looks like an old 45 record with a hole in the middle, but what it is they've cut out the Apple logo and then they've engraved it, for President Donald Trump and then the Apple, whatever, yada, yada. And this is the glass that they made now in Kentucky. And then there's this base that they made in Utah that's 24 karat gold. And it appears like Tim Cook is just supposed to slide this glass into the base and he's having trouble with it. But that was the big announcement. The big announcement was the jobs are coming home and the glass is going to be made in Kentucky and there's going to be $600 billion. And that's good because as Donald Trump says, it changes everything.
Thank you very much. It changes our country. I mean, our country is a very different country than it was 6 months ago. And people like Tim are coming. We had Micron in yesterday. We had all of the big, great companies that you read about, you don't know about, but you read about. Many of them were making products outside of our country. Foolishly, we lost them. If we had the right person sitting in that seat, that would have never happened 20 and 30 years ago. When you look at the chip business, it would have never left our shores. We had 100% of chips originally, and then we slowly got taken down to nothing. We have the biggest chip companies, both of them, but we have the biggest in the world coming in. They're going to Arizona and beyond. And we're going to have, in a short period of time, we'll be up to almost 50% of the chips from starting in nothing. And that's something. But we have the greatest companies in the world coming into our country, and that means jobs. And it means wealth, and wealth means security for our people.
Yeah. And so that's what's been going on. You've got wealth and security and chips coming in from all over the place. And Donald Trump says that means that America is going to be great. We had Joe Biden in charge, and he basically decimated our technology industry. And now Donald Trump is bringing it back. In fact, Donald Trump is involved like no other president has been involved in our technology industry. This was yesterday that he had Tim Cook in with the $600 billion announcement. This was this morning. Donald Trump wrote, "The CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Thank you for your attention to this problem," which threw me off because usually he writes, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." But he wrote, "Thank you for your attention to this problem." It's a big problem because Donald Trump used problem. He ended 2 back-to-back sentences with the word problem. The CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Thank you for your attention to this problem. That's it. That's the Truth Social post. And the reason Donald Trump said that is because the Intel chief is tied to China. And Donald Trump is now mixing business and politics. He's saying, look, this guy needs to resign because he's conflicted. Here's the story from Reuters. I don't want to allow ads on my. No, thank you. Let's go somewhere. All right, we'll just go to CNN. Trump calls on Intel CEO to resign. President Donald Trump on Thursday demanded the resignation of Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan, following reports and allegations that he has ties to China. The CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign. We just read that. The call comes just days after Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton raised concerns and pressed the chair of Intel's board over the CEO's alleged connections to China, questioning the integrity of the company and its impact on U.S. national security. In a letter earlier this week to Intel board chair Frank Yeary, Cotton pointed to recent reporting on Tan's Chinese investments. Reuters in April reported that Tan had personally and through various venture funds invested in hundreds of Chinese companies, some of which have ties to the country's military. The new CEO of Intel reportedly has deep ties to the Chinese communists. U.S. companies who receive government grants should be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars and adhere to strict security regulations. The board of Intel owes Congress an explanation, Cotton wrote in a post on X, and he attached the letter. Intel and Tan did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Shares of Intel fell nearly 5% in pre-market trading. Trump's remarks come as Tan, who took over as Intel CEO in March, is attempting to revive the beleaguered chipmaker after it missed out on the mobile and AI boom. Rival NVIDIA, whose chips have been crucial for AI infrastructure, became the first $4 trillion company last month. Intel said in July that it had slashed 15% of its workforce in the hopes of creating a faster moving, flatter, and more agile organization. So Donald Trump now saying, look, you got to go. The only solution to this problem, because you're so tied to the Chinese Communist Party, because you're investing in Chinese military technology, and because you're in charge of American technology, you got to go. You can't have your cake and eat it too. That's not how it flies over here. And Tom Cotton also bringing attention to this. This is really, I mean, it's a really fascinating thing that's happening. What Donald Trump every single day gets on Truth Social and makes proclamations and announcements. And I mean, I'm not even going to call that a suggestion, just demands. Donald Trump uses Truth Social, by the way, it's his own private platform. He created it after he got booted off of Twitter. Imagine Donald Trump got booted off of Twitter. He created his own social platform called Truth Social, and now he uses it to implement foreign policy for the United States of America and drive the stock market and make demands of various different corporations and entities around the globe. He announced the Iran attack on Truth Social. He announced other attacks. He announces people that he's firing and hiring and promoting, all of it on Truth Social. It's become the ad hoc, if you will, social media platform of the United States government. And this morning, he made another post, which is of interest to a lot of people, regarding the census. This comes at a time when the Texas Democrats are hiding out in Illinois. Why? Well, because They are not fans of the redistricting plan that Governor Greg Abbott and the Republicans are putting into place, and so they fled. They shirked their responsibilities, and now they're hiding out in Illinois. And Donald Trump said, "Look, I've instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter." So what Donald Trump is saying now is really the folks in Texas are right, because the census is every 10 years. Every 10 years there's a census, and that's how they redistrict, and that's how they redraw the districts. And that's why in Florida we have now 30 seats in Congress, and New York is down to 26, I think, because they lost people and we gained. During COVID, people left New York. Where'd they show up? They showed up in Florida. So now that we have more people in Florida, we get more representation in the House of Representatives. And that's good news for conservatives all over the country. Bad news for Democrats in New York. That always means that there's redistricting going on constantly. And in Texas, instead of waiting 10 years, they said, look, Joe Biden's open border policy has totally bastardized and destroyed any semblance of what our actual population is. We don't really know what the census data is. We don't know if it's accurate. We're pretty sure it's not. And also, they were counting illegal aliens, many of whom have been deported by President Donald Trump, or who have self-deported so that they don't get deported by President Donald Trump and ICE and Tom Homan. And so they need new districts in Texas because they know that the numbers were flawed and skewed by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And they don't want to wait 5 more years. They don't want to wait. They don't want to use bad data. If you deport millions of people from your country, or if you have millions of people leave your country, probably you should do a recount. And Donald Trump says that's exactly what we're going to do. And that new census data is going to show movement in this country of illegal aliens who have been deported, people who have fled blue states for red states. And what it's going to mean is you're going to have more redistricting. You're going to have more changes in representation. Florida may get even more representatives. Texas may get even more representatives. New York and California may lose representatives. Places where people left to go to redder pastures, Tennessee, for example. Anywhere you see these population booms because of COVID and because of, people geographically leaving for political reasons, you're going to see some movement. And Donald Trump wants it sooner than later. And I have to imagine that's going to ruffle some more feathers. But who really cares? Because like Donald Trump said, the Democrats would do it anyway. The Democrats would, if the Democrats are saying we're going to redistrict just to get back at Texas, they would have done it anyway. They would have done it when they got back to power, or they would have done it after the next election, or they would have done it before the next election. And Donald Trump says, we're not having any of that. Another huge story that broke yesterday. There was a lot of news yesterday. I was watching the information about this horrible attack, by the way, in Georgia, at the Army base in Georgia. And by the way, Donald Trump, he mentioned that at the beginning of his press conference with Apple CEO Tim Cook. He did mention the shooting.
Before we begin, I'd like to say a few words about the shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia. As you know, 5 people were seriously wounded and 2 very, very seriously hurt around 11 o'clock this morning. The shooter is now in custody, and the Army Criminal Investigation Division is on site to ensure that the perpetrator of this atrocity, which is exactly what it is, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The entire nation is praying for the victims and their families, and hopefully they'll fully recover, and we can put this chapter behind, but we're not going to forget what happened. We're going to take very good care of this person that did this horrible person.
Yeah, and that is something that Donald Trump, of course, being the law and order president, is all about. But anyway, while I was watching that, Donald Trump's press conference was about to begin with Tim Cook, and then all of a sudden there was breaking news about Vladimir Putin in Russia asking to meet with President Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin, who's been meeting with, and the Russian envoys have been talking to Steve Witkoff, special envoy from the United States. They've been out there trying to negotiate, trying to hammer out a peace deal to end the war with Ukraine. And Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, I guess they get this information that Vladimir Putin now wants to sit down with Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin basically blinked and said, I got to talk to Donald Trump.
Well, Steve went over to Moscow yesterday, Steve Witkoff, Ambassador Witkoff, and had a productive meeting in terms of what was discussed, the details that perhaps hadn't been shared before in terms of some ideas about how to bring this war to an end. Let's remind everybody that's the goal here. The president wants to end the war. So it was productive in that sense. We now have to continue to make progress. The president, after getting that update today, convened several leaders from Europe, updated them on what happened in the talks. We're going to be having talks with our European allies and the Ukrainians as well over the next couple of days, just to see what progress we can make on that side of it. And then hopefully, if things continue to progress, an opportunity will present itself very soon for the president to meet both with Vladimir Putin and with President Zelensky at some point here, hopefully in the near future. But obviously, a lot has to happen before that can occur. But I've always believed, I've always said this, that I think for the deal, if there's going to be a deal to end this war, it'll have to require the president to come in at the end and close on it, as I've seen him do numerous times now on trade deals as an example. So we got to get close enough to that point so that a meeting like that will be productive and worth doing. Today was a good day, but we got a lot of work ahead. There's still many impediments to overcome. And we hope to do that over the next few days and hours.
All right, so Steve Witkoff's out there. He's negotiating with the Russians, and then he finds out Vladimir Putin wants to sit down with Donald Trump, and that's Donald Trump's the closer. So they now know what the end game is. The end game is getting Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and United States President Donald Trump to all come together at some kind of summit or some kind of meeting where they're going to come out, they're going to work out a deal. Donald Trump's going to close the deal to end the war. And Vladimir Putin coming forward and really, making this first move is a credit to Donald Trump's multi-pronged attack on Russia. It's been a diplomatic attack. It's been a PR attack. It's been an economic attack, and it's been a military attack. He's been attacking Russia at every chance. He's been on Truth Social saying Vladimir Putin went crazy. I don't know what happened to Putin. He went crazy. He snapped. I knew him. He used to be a good guy. Now he's just killing people. I don't know what happened. And that's not just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. That's an attack. That's something that is going to resonate with Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump putting nuclear submarines in place when Medvedev starts talking crazy about attacks on Moscow. Donald Trump says, we don't take threats lightly here. If you threaten us, we're going to move our pieces into place. And that's exactly what he did. That was another attack. Donald Trump negotiating with the EU to wrestle away, I don't know if you had to wrestle. I think you just said you're going to do it. $750 billion worth of energy that is not now going to Russia. $750 billion worth of energy. $750 billion that Russia is losing. That's a lot of money. $750 billion that's coming to the United States. That means Vladimir Putin can't take that money and buy munitions or drones or missiles or anything else. He can't replenish his troop supply. Vladimir Putin, with losing $750 billion in Russia, they don't build skyscrapers with that money. They arm themselves. And Donald Trump knows that. So he's trying to bankrupt Russia, and he's doing a great job. It's the same thing he did yesterday with China and Apple. China and Apple, he had Tim Cook in the Oval Office, and he got $600 billion. He had Vladimir Putin saying, I want to sit down and talk. Think about Donald Trump's day yesterday. He talked to Tim Cook, Vladimir Putin, and Big Balls. Typical day in the life of President Donald Trump. But Marco Rubio said, look, we now have a better understanding kind of what's going on in Russia and what the end game is for the Ukraine war.
I think what we have is a better understanding of the conditions under which Russia would be prepared to end the war. We now have to compare that to what the Ukrainians and our European allies, but the Ukrainians primarily, of course, are willing to accept. And what you try to see is how far can you get these two positions closer? How can you get these two positions closer to each other? If we can get what the Ukrainians will accept and what the Russians will accept close enough, then I think there's the opportunity for the president to have a meeting that includes both Putin and Zelensky to try to close this thing out. So we got to get closer in that regard. But I think for the first time, perhaps since this administration began, we have some concrete examples of the kinds of things that Russia would ask for in order to end the war. We haven't had much of that to this point. Obviously, the Ukrainians have a say in this. We got to bring the two sides and the two positions close enough so that the ultimate closer, President Trump, can get involved and make it happen.
Yeah, the UC, the ultimate closer. And Donald Trump said, look, I'm more than willing to make this happen because that's all I've ever wanted.
Have Putin and Zelensky agreed to a summit yet? And where and when would that be?
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
Yeah. And that is something that Donald Trump has been looking forward to because it was one of his platforms. You may remember he wanted a very quick end to the war. And it's been the one thing that so far, I don't want to say evade because he's only been in office for 200 days, which, by the way, did you realize it's been 200 days? I remember the 100 days. The 100 days just seemed like 100 days ago. Now we're at 200 days and Donald Trump is moving faster than ever before. He's not slowing down. A lot of people would think, it's August, it's the end of summer, Congress is out of session, the Senate's running around doing basically nothing. Donald Trump can take some time off. He's not. In fact, Harrison Fields, who's a special counsel to the president, he was on the news. He's like, look, we're at 200 days and you ain't seen nothing yet.
Promises made, promises kept in the first 200 days. Let me tell you, if you waited online to vote for the Trump-Vance ticket, you are very, very happy. There are probably some Democrats that wish they did it. And they still have time to support the MAGA agenda because it's just now getting started in President Trump's second term. So we are cruising, all gas, no brakes. As I said before, the American people are way better off today than they were 4 years ago under President Trump.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we can all agree on. Well, all of us except for Jasmine Crockett and the Texas Democrats, which I still can't tell which is funnier. Jasmine Crockett coming to the defense of John Cornyn.
Now, listen, I'm about to tell all of MSNBC a secret. I actually don't hate Senator Cornyn at all. And right now, what we have is a senator who actually is a real Republican who's doing everything that he can to make it seem like he's a MAGA Republican so that he can get through his primary.
Or is it Cartman in the role of Charlie Kirk?
Oh my God, what makes you think you have the right to say what I do with my body?
Let me ask you something. If a pregnant woman is killed and the baby dies too, why is the killer charged with a double homicide?
Well, because people have different beliefs.
It's not about belief. It's about truth. Science confirms life begins at conception.
I mean, it was really both of those could be my new favorite clips. Hey, speaking of Congress being on vacation, I know it's tough to tell when Congress is on vacation and when they're in DC because about the same amount of stuff gets done. But I do want to take this opportunity to remind you that I'm looking to change all that by changing out one of our representatives, and that is Congressman John Rutherford here in Florida's 5th District. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm running to replace him. And we've hit the ground running. We've hit the ground hard. We are almost 1 year away. In fact, you know what? Let me show you something. I came up with, this is our official campaign website, but I want to show you this. This is just going to show you, if you go to markkaye.com/countdown, I created a countdown. Okay. So if you go to markkaye.com/countdown, you can see exactly how much time is left before you can vote in the primary to replace John Rutherford. If you're in Florida's 5th District, we have 375 days, 16 hours, 53 minutes, and 56 seconds. That's the countdown. So we're 10 days away from just a year out. But even though it's early, I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday. Even though it's early, we need some early dough. What they say early money is like yeast. It helps raise the dough. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to raise as much money as possible. People are volunteering, and we have lots of folks that are coming out to our big rally, and we love it. We've got yard signs on the way. It's going to be an incredible event at Sneakers on August 18th in Jacksonville Beach. But we do need all the financial support from anywhere. You don't have to live in Florida's 5th District to support us financially. You do have to live in the United States. So if you're in the United States of America and you have 25, 50, $100, whatever you can spare for the campaign, please spare it for the campaign because, like I said, we're in an uphill battle. We are fighting against an incumbent who is well-funded, who is not well-liked, but doesn't care because he's well-funded. And that's a dangerous combination. We're ready for it. We're ready to do it. We're going to do it, but it's going to take everybody's help. So markkforcongress.com is where you need to go. Listen, we haven't done a Miller time in a very, very long while, and I didn't want to leave today without checking in with Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of the border, and I think like 9,000 other things. Stephen Miller, who is right there in the midst of all of this. Stephen Miller has an update on the weaponization of the financial institutions in this country against conservatives like you and me.
We talk a lot about the weaponization of the justice system, but we haven't talked as much about the weaponization of the financial system. One of the worst features of the last 4 years under Biden and Democrat rule, but of course it also precedes that too, is the use of banking and access to the financial system to enforce a regime of censorship and political control, right? Like something out of a communist country. We all know stories of people who had their platforms, their financial platforms taken away from them simply because of how they thought or how they spoke or what their political beliefs were. As we've explored this and examined this as the White House, we found these practices are even more widespread than previously known. As you mentioned, they use this pretext of reputational risk as a basis for financial censorship, which is truly odious, truly un-American, truly dangerous to liberty in every sense. So we've worked closely with Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent on developing a financial enforcement mechanism to ensure that those who participate in the banking system are not debanking and financially deplatforming Americans as a result of their political beliefs. And we're hopefully going to have that product finished soon, and we'll be able to bring that to the president for signature. As he's identified, this is a top priority for him.
And that is fantastic news because, look, as somebody who's been demonetized and deplatformed, as somebody who's always trying to fight against the algorithms and the liberals in the media, not just the regular media, but social media, as somebody who's, I literally wrote a book on this called Cancel Proof, but basically financial, what he's talking about, this financial weaponization, deplatforming is one thing. If you shut somebody down or shadow ban them, they get angry. You know, they get angry. They go, I want to get on Twitter and spew hate about Democrats, but I can't do it. I want to get on YouTube and make videos exposing the Clintons, but I can't do it. If I want to talk about COVID and masks and all that stuff, but I can't. I keep getting deplatformed and doxxed, and I keep getting suppressed, and I keep getting shadow banned, and they take away all my. I go on one day, I have 1 million followers. The next day, I have 20. That's one thing. And yes, it's insufferable and it's angering. But when they start shutting down your accounts, demonetizing you, taking away your ability to do business in this country, that's a whole different ballgame. And that is something that Stephen Miller and President Donald Trump and now Scott Bessent rightly need to bring under control and make sure that there are ample systems in place to keep banks. Because banks, remember, they are federally regulated, federally insured. And if you are a bank, you have to work within certain guidelines of the United States government. This should definitely be one of those guidelines. There should be guidelines regarding the demonetization as weaponization of conservatives or really anybody. I mean, no bank should be able to stop doing business with you just because of the things that you say or the way that you think or act on social media. And it's exciting to see that President Donald Trump, somebody who's been a victim of this himself, is on the forefront of it and doing whatever he can to stop it. Listen, don't forget to subscribe to this show because there's so much every day. It don't even stop. And I know that I've been remiss with my weekend. I've always talked about how there's so much to do. There's so much to talk about that on the weekend I'm going to start doing podcasts. And I apologize for that, but I will start doing that. Like I said, we're understaffed here, and I'm starting to grow even. You realize the need for help, and we're starting to grow out the company even more so that we do have more time for more content, for more regular content, for daily content, including Saturday and Sunday. And that's something that hopefully you can look for more of. But you're only going to get it if you subscribe. If you subscribe to this channel, set the notifications. If you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. If you're watching Spotify now, we are featured with video, which means if you go to Spotify, you can not only listen to me, but you can look at me. And how great do I look? And then, of course, don't forget, you can always support us in multiple different ways. In fact, we got a couple of super chats. I'm not even going to say the name of this person, but they left a $2 super chat and wrote, "Are we still talking about big balls?" Yes, we are. Person who shall not be named, but thank you very much for that I guess that's a real, that's obviously it's a real YouTube channel. And then Jeff Tim dropped a $5 super chat and wrote, Capitol homicide rates. Do you trust UN data anymore? Jeff Who is a well-known skeptic. Jeff Who is a well-known, well, you know, I take the data when it bolsters my point. And Donald Trump referenced it. So if Donald Trump referenced it, you know, I'm just referencing that Donald Trump referenced it. You take the data. I'm not standing by the data at all. I'm just saying Donald Trump said he saw this chart on TV. Here's the chart that he saw. There you go. But Jeff, thank you so much for your very generous donation. Thanks for your generous super chat. We appreciate it. Person who shall not be named because you've got a dirty name, thank you for your super chat as well. We appreciate that. Thank you for everybody who watched today and supported and subscribed and sent super chats, and all the people who donated to our campaign. Because remember, when you donate to the campaign, you're donating to the cause, and the cause is to save this country, to save conservatism, to keep the Christian conservative ideals based in God and the Bible made sure to be guaranteed by the Constitution, protecting those. That's my goal in life. That's what we all do here every single day. We talk about the enemies of this country, the enemies of the Constitution, the enemies of the founding principles that make this the #1 country in the world, the enemies of capitalism, and all these other fantastic things that we've lived our lives by and that we've used to build this powerful superpower of a nation that keeps the rest of the world in check. We don't just keep them in check militarily, but economically, morally, and we are the defenders of freedom and liberty for countries that don't even have freedom and liberty, if you can believe that. And we do it because we have conservatives in Congress. We need more. That's why I'm running. MarkKforCongress.com. MarkKforCongress.com. Listen, tune in tomorrow for sure, because we're going to have another fantastic episode of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And I'll let you know what's going on, what's changed, who's coming at you, where the dangers are, where the threats are, who you can trust, who you should never trust in a million years, and how you can stay sharp, and how you can stay equipped, and how you can stay informed and enlightened and inspired and excited to fight, so we can save the Republic. Are we having an after party? I think we're having an after party today. Katriots.com. Give me like 5 minutes